God, it's such a beautiful picture of your love that you've given each of us a unique role to play in the grand adventure of life you've written. You have initiated life through your creation, but you also sustain it and care for it and give that creation meaning. I pray we would come to understand that meaning in light of your grace, that you are our Father that delights in us. The fact that nothing we could do or be or accomplish makes you love us more or less means we are free to celebrate the paradox that through imperfect humans you speak, you work, and you give purpose. Our jobs, our pursuit of education, our relationships, and our communities give us a chance to, as it's been said, rearrange the raw material of your creation for the purpose of human flourishing. I pray that we wouldn't take those roles lightly, that we would see the opportunities we've been given and feel the weight of responsibility for shaping our world, that we would consider this life not just an opportunity for our own personal self-fulfillment, but for the flourishing of others. As we honor the rich tradition of an institution that fosters the thirst for knowledge, the commitment to hard work, and a lifestyle of service, as well as the individuals who have gone before us embodying these ideals, inspire in us a desire to continue that legacy. And above all, in everything we do, make us look more like you. Give us your heart for beauty, your passion for justice, and your love of humanity.
Good morning. Welcome to this 69th annual celebration of achievement on a beautiful spring day. I'm really pleased that you've joined us today. You've been enjoying the sounds of the William Jewell College Symphonic Band under the direction of Professor Bill Schaefer. Our procession was led by Dr. Ian Coleman, Professor of Music and Chair of the Faculty Council. The invocation was offered by Ms. Beth Ann Hendrickson, the 2013 recipient of the Leona McReynolds Cressy Award. Please join me in expressing our appreciation for their leadership. When we gather today as a community of scholars, faculty, staff, alumni, and special friends to continue the distinguished tradition of Achievement Day begun in 1944 by English professor and public relations director P. Casper Hart. Since that first Achievement Day, the college has honored 362 individuals who have distinguished themselves as alumni of the college. And today we add 3 more honorees to that illustrious group. We believe that behind great students and alumni are thoughtful, caring, and challenging mentors. And I'd like to ask the members of the William Jewell College faculty to stand and be recognized for the critical role they play in inspiring our students to achieve their highest potential. For our honorees, the individual journeys that led to significant career and life achievements were in part fueled on the Jewell campus. They are proof that a liberal arts education provides a solid foundation for the whole of life. At William Jewell College, we fervently believe in the power of the liberal arts to provide a context for making informed career and life decisions in an increasingly complex global community. Our academic program incorporates an intentional core curriculum that provides a progressive path toward a broad and deep educational experience. Our faculty challenge students to develop critical thinking skills, to practice ethical decision-making, to engage in complex problem-solving, and to develop effective communication skills. As it did with our honorees, studying the liberal arts tradition prepares our students for a lifetime of personal and professional success. But today is more than a celebration of individual achievement. It's also a day to celebrate the college community. During this week, in 1849, Jewell was founded by a charter granted by the Missouri legislature. Now, 164 years later, we remain committed to the high calling of teaching and learning. Our history is full of extraordinary men and women who have given of themselves to build this institution, and we celebrate their contributions as well. I'd like to recognize several individuals here this morning who played an important role in the life of the college. First, representatives of the Board of Trustees are with us. Please stand as I call your name. Let's hold our applause until all have been introduced. Gary Barnes, Patty Garney, Bill Gotro, Bob Gigglebach, Ollie Malone, Karen Mathis, Diane Shoemaker, Debbie Smith, Joyce Steincross, Rick Wright, and Doris Cook. Thank you all very much. We're also pleased to have a number of past Achievement Day honorees in attendance today. Would all the previous Citation for Achievement honorees please stand so that we can recognize you as we do. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Ann Dima, Provost of the College, to recognize student accomplishments.
Today we recognize not only our alumni honorees for distinguished achievement, but also students who have earned a revered honor. Students ranked in the top 10% of their class qualify for induction into Phi Epsilon Honor Society if they have completed a minimum of 60 credit hours at William Jewell. Will the members of Phi Epsilon Honor Society who are present this morning please stand so we may recognize them? We look forward to more great things from you. 2 years ago, Citation for Achievement recipient Diane Weber, who is with us today, stood on the stage and shared her story of becoming a Rear Admiral in the United States Navy. Diane said, "I wanted to be a band director and was certain that I had gotten the best music education possible. But when that didn't pan out and another opportunity emerged, I took it, because that's what I had been doing at William Jewell for 4 years. And the sudden shift in plans did not seem intimidating or insurmountable. My education turned out to be less about music and much more about learning to think, discovering who I was, putting my talents to good use, and taking opportunities as they come." On Wednesday evening, at a dinner for student leaders in this year's Achievers, I heard similar sentiments regarding their educational experience. Students, you are surrounded by talented peers and led by an outstanding faculty. We hope that whatever path you envision for yourself, you will follow the example of our honorees and seize the opportunities as they come. We challenge you to trust in your education and believe that you can achieve more than you ever imagined. Thank you.
This expectation of achievement is woven into the very fabric of our lives that we do. Our honorees have achieved great things in their lives, and it's time to recognize those achievements. Because success is never achieved alone, it's customary to invite relatives, special friends, and related student groups to stand with our honorees. So as your name or group is called, please stand and remain standing throughout the presentation of your honoree. Our first honoree today is Mr. Mark Mathis, to be presented by Ms. Liz Hoyt, Assistant Professor of Business Administration.
Good morning. Standing in honor and with Mark Mathis this morning are his wife, Karen Roder Mathis, a 1980 Jewell alumna, his mother, Bobby Mathis, mother-in-law, Ima Roder, Jewell class of 1958, his sister, Marshall Mathis, His sons Jordan, Justin, and Jared, a 2009 Dual graduate. His daughters Laurel and Mary, a 2010 alumna. Sister-in-law and brother-in-law Norma and Barry Armour. Nephews Carson and Hayden Armour. And dear friends Dave and Eileen McCoy, Brian and Joan Kramer, Steve and Ann Martin, Doug and Joy Steincross. Also standing with Mr. Mathis today are students and faculty who are currently involved in the same majors and co-curricular activities and interests that Mark enjoyed while he was an undergraduate. Would the following groups please stand and remain standing in honor and support of Mr. Mathis? Members of the William Jewell College Entrepreneurial Society. Communication majors. Business majors. Members of the Kappa Alpha Order. Members of Student Senate. Participants in the Harlaxton Overseas Study Program. And faculty members of the Departments of Business and Leadership and Communication. If there's anybody who isn't standing, I'm sorry, I didn't call you. And now for the citation for achievement to Mark Mathis. In honor of outstanding achievement in his chosen sphere of endeavor, William Jewell College recognizes this alumnus of the class of 1979 whose life exemplifies the highest values of a liberal arts education. Our alumnus honoree is widely recognized as a pioneer in the field of business and environmental sustainability. As CEO of Vanguard Companies, he has spent his career proving to an entire industry that a sustainable business model can also be economically viable. A 1979 graduate who pursued degrees in both business administration and communication at William Jewell, Mark Mathis grew up in the corrugated industry, working literally every job that a corrugated facility offered. He began at the age of 16 working in a design lab after school and in the manufacturing plant each summer. Following a brief stint in public relations at Farmland Industries, he joined Vanguard Companies in 1981, working his way up from sales to his current position as CEO of a progressive company that is considered an industry leader in the design and manufacture of retail point-of-purchase displays, signage, packaging, labels, and corrugated boxes. Vanguard is also viewed as a pioneer in business and environmental sustainability, with an ultimate company goal of becoming the world's first carbon-neutral manufacturer. In 1996, he expanded his business to include Vanguard Label for the manufacture of pressure-sensitive labels, and in 1998, he expanded the business again to encompass the production of spiral-wound paper tubes. His leadership role in sustainability in the corrugated industry has earned him membership in the Walmart Sustainability Value Network, in addition to membership on the Walmart PSST group, which advises the international retail giant on performance scorecard issues. He also shares his expertise as a faculty member of the In-Store Marketing Institute and as a contributor to the Paperboard Packaging magazine. His industry leadership is recognized and valued worldwide, as he is currently first vice chairman and in September will become chairman of the Association of Independent Corrugated Converters, the largest, most influential international association in this industry. Additionally, at the same time, he is on the executive committee of the board of directors of the Fiber Box Association, putting him in direct line for the chairmanship of this organization as well. And it should be noted that in this industry, nobody has ever chaired both of these highly critical organizations. His personal leadership extends to government and community service as well. The Liberty native served his hometown as a city councilman from 1985 to 1993. Indeed, he is the model of a responsible corporate and civic leader. The college proudly recognizes his life and achievements as a reflection of the ideals to which this institution is dedicated. For accomplishments and contributions in the fields of business, sustainability, and entrepreneurship, William Jewell College is honored to present to Mr. Mark Mathis this citation for achievement.
Presenting Dr. John Sinclair is Dr. Ian Coleman, Professor of Music and Chair of the Department.
Standing with Dr. Sinclair this morning are his wife, Gail, his daughter, Kaylee, his mother and father-in-law, music majors, members of the concert choir, members of the chapel choir, members of the symphonic band, members of the Liberty Symphony Orchestra, and faculty members from the Department of Music. In honor of outstanding achievement in his chosen sphere of endeavor, William Jewell College recognizes this alumnus of the class of 1976, whose life exemplifies the highest values of a liberal arts education. Perhaps, given our current weather, we might consider that John Sinclair's greatest achievement since leaving Jewell was to move quickly to Florida, where he informs me that just the other day his colleagues were deciding whether or not to turn on the air conditioning. And if you look at your program, you will read a distinguished biography of John Sinclair. It is well worth reading, as it clearly outlines his many and varied achievements since graduating from William Jewell. What you read there implies something that you only really experience when you have a chance to meet John. In some ways, he summed it up best himself when addressing some of our current students on Wednesday evening. He said, "The books you read will teach you how to think, but it is the arts that will teach you how to feel." The bottom line is that you don't have to know John long to realize that he understands that the arts enrich our lives, that this is often just at the point where words run out, that great music or an engaging image or the action on a stage can speak to our inner self more profoundly than words, and that when words are placed into the music, they may carry a deeper impact than is possible alone. The famous pianist and conductor Leon Fleischer wrote to us on hearing that John was to be honored today, saying, "One of the greatest gifts we have as artists is to share our knowledge and life experiences, our love for music with another generation." This has been a major focus of John Sinclair's wonderful contributions to music. John's work at the Bach Festival Society of Winter Park, with the International Moravian Music Festivals, and his repeated performances of the great Handel masterpiece, The Messiah, all speak to his desire to keep alive and vibrant the great art that is such a deep expression of the human experience. Furthermore, John is committed to the performance of new art, making the statement that art does not live only in the past, but just as much in the present and the future. The college proudly recognizes John's life and achievements as a reflection of the ideals to which this institution is dedicated. For accomplishments and contributions in the field of the arts, William Jewell College is honored to present to Dr. Sinclair this citation for achievement.
Presenting the Honorable Josephine Staten Tucker is Dr. Gary T. Armstrong, Professor of Political Science and Chair of the Department.
Also standing with her honor this morning are students who participated in some of the same activities. They would be English majors, international relations majors, members of Alpha Gamma Delta, members of the dance team, members of mortarboard, students who participated in the Oxford Overseas Study Program, members of the Student Senate, members of CUA, and faculty members from the Department of English. Standing before you is an English major. Now, in the last month, according to Google News, these are the decisions our English major has got to make. Should a convicted child pornographer get only home detention rather than prison because he suffers from the disease MS? How should we set damages from the biggest oil companies in the world when their tanks have linked contaminants into local groundwater supplies? And did a couple of importers really steal the images of Mickey and Minnie Mouse and Hello Kitty from the Disney company? And, this is not yet in the news, how can she get the People's Republic of China to appear in her court to answer an intellectual property complaint? An English major. Her Honor, Judge Josephine Tucker, told Jewel students she's not really a career planner, and just sort of fell into her life's work as a U.S. judge in California. She loved courses in English with Professors Anne Marie Shannon and Dean Dunham and fell into being an English major. She'd studied Russian in high school, found out that Professor Will Adams spoke Russian, yeah, the one who teaches ballroom dancing, and so therefore fell into being an IR major. Her brother pushed and prodded her to apply, of all places, to Harvard Law School, which she didn't intend to apply to, so she fell into Harvard. Our nominee seems to regularly fall into fortune. Humility might prevent her saying it, but on this day, her alma mater is ready to crow and proudly proclaim that she shows what the great scientist Louis Pasteur said: fortune favors only the prepared mind. Our judge set aside a successful and appealing private practice. In 2001, she was named Employment Trial Attorney of the Year in Orange County, California. But then came 9/11. Looking at the horror and urgency of that day, Ms. Tucker resolved to set aside her private practice and seek out public service. After 9/11, our English and IR major became a judge. A few friends started phoning her, and then other friends started phoning her, urging her to do it, to apply for the judgeship. She said she is only lucky to have fallen into such good friends. To get her job as a federal judge, Jewel's own Josephine Tucker had to fill out a questionnaire for the United States Senate. Think of it as the ultimate final exam with 100 graders. She had to deal with questions like, do you believe it is ever appropriate for federal judges to indulge their own values in determining what the law means? Her answer, no. If so, under what circumstances? Judge Tucker, see my previous answer. Provide an example of when you have done this. I have not done this. See my previous answer. When Matt Reisner asked Judge Tucker a question last night, and to interrupt for just a moment, this is Matt Reisner, fraternity president, extraordinary national debate champion, who just found out that he has won one of the most competitive internships. He has been awarded an internship with the United States State Department. I'm looking for Matt. I don't see him, so if you run into him. Matt Reisner asked her what, as an English major, had turned out to be an important judge as a skill. Judge Tucker looked at him with one answer and said, brevity. And she owns a prepared mind. For her accomplishments and contributions in the world of justice and the field of jurisprudence, for the exceptional quality of her leadership as attested to by her appointment to the United States Federal Bench by the President of the United States, and her confirmation to that office by the United States Senate, William Jewell College is honored to present to the Honorable Josephine Staten Tucker the citation of achievement.
Well, what a great class of honorees. Would all three of you stand so we can recognize this group? Our honorees have agreed to share some insights with us this morning, and they will do so immediately after we hear from the concert choir singing under the direction of Dr. Anthony Maglione, Director of Choral Studies. Morning. That's good. Before I start, I just want to say that last night, when we walked out onto the stage, some friends of mine on the front row decided to inform me that my pants were unzipped. They weren't unzipped. But in spite of the fact that I'm wearing a robe today and I'm standing behind this podium, there are some of you I have no intention of looking at this morning while speaking. I would say that it is very appropriate, the weather today, because if you would have asked me in the past, I would have said it would have been a cold day in hell when I got this honor. From the moment I received a phone call from Dr. Sully advising me of my selection to this prestigious group of accomplished alumni, I thought it had to be a joke being played on me by my wife, or obviously maybe some friends. So after repeated assurance that it was real and that I was actually chosen, I have concluded that my selection to this honor is to honor all subpar students and fraternity members wherever they may be. Many people assume that I attended William Jewell College because my father had attended the college in the mid-1950s. I did not attend William Jewell because he came here. My sister and I were afforded a chance at a higher education because he went to William Jewell College. My father came from extreme poverty, alternating between homes with no running water or no home at all.
While working for his father's employer as an unskilled construction worker in high school, the man who owned the company saw something in him and encouraged him to attend college to break that circle or that cycle of poverty. His response was that it was completely out of the question due to cost. In a moment that changed the lives of many people he would never know, Mr. Kinney informed him that he would pay for my father to attend William Jewell in Liberty, Missouri. Now that was a place that was maybe 30 miles away on a map, but could have been the other side of the planet. While at William Jewell, he discovered an entire world of possibilities foreign to a child of poverty, met his future wife, my mom, and he merged that with the work ethic of his German immigrant grandfather and his father, who he often referred to as the meanest bastard he ever met. So it's without a doubt that the wrong Mathis has been selected. But what Mr. Kinney did so many years ago to open the eyes and the world of possibilities to a kid with no future led my wife and I recently to quietly celebrate having given out over $1 million to educational needs, including direct scholarships over the last 5 years. The lesson here is to never forget where you came from and always pay profound acts of kindness forward. Now let me tell you my story. It could easily be the story of many of these students or even people of my age as well. I graduated from Liberty High School confident in the knowledge that I was the first of my family to do so without ever doing homework in 4 years. Highlights of those years include pouring honey on the seat of my math teacher's motorcycle to attract a swarm of bees. That was my freshman year. My sophomore year, I sunk my mom's car in a swamp. Got a little better my junior year. I was elected to class president, junior class president. And I finished off my senior year by stealing the large fiberglass cow from the Sirloin Stockade restaurant. It was armed with these qualifications that I applied to 2 schools, the University of Kansas and William Jewell, as a backup in the event that I did not get accepted to KU. My sister, who used to sit on top of me and dangle spit there, she could get it to go before sucking it back up, was already in attendance at KU. And I liked the school. The one time I was forced to visit her at her sorority house. But fate has a way of interrupting great plans. So while I was visiting the admission office to make sure that the William Jewell admissions letter was not a mistake, I ran into Dr. Kingsley, who at that time was vice president of the college. I knew the Kingsley family well, had encountered his son, Gordon Jr., as a good friend of mine through high school. Dr. Kingsley informed me that William Jewell had begun working with the University of Evansville to send students to a college in England. And the entire Kingsley family was going to attend the school in the spring semester, and although freshmen weren't allowed, I could go to keep his son company. So that night at dinner, you might remember this, almost as in passing, I informed my parents that I was going to put off KU, attend William Jewell so I could go to school in England in the spring semester. You have to understand, my demographics were not the stuff of promotional brochures. I was a solid low B student. I graduated somewhere about 50% in my class, and I had test scores from the one time I took the ACT, I'm sure solidly in the center of the bell curve. I came from a middle-class family in a suburban town with a stay-at-home mom and a dog. I was the poster child for average, except for one thing. I hated average, and I hated taking second place at anything. So in spite of almost working hard at classes and almost getting good grades, I had a burning distaste for the thing that I represented. The irony is that while I didn't intellectually know it, I knew it in my gut. I was searching for the thing that would allow me to escape the average existence that becomes so comfortable for so many people. What I didn't know I was looking for then was the door to learning. I didn't then, still don't today as an employer, care about grades or degrees. If you you want A's, go to some of these academically elite schools where grade inflation is out of control. Forbes magazine recently stated that there are 115,000 janitors in the United States with bachelor's degrees. But if you want to learn, go to where the people you surround yourself with are smarter, they're quicker thinking, harder working, and better students than you. Then seek out teachers and professors who keep asking questions like why and how come. What William Jewell did for me was I learned how to learn. It showed me a path for learning to solve problems and communicate solutions. And I will share with you a couple of those examples. In my first semester of my freshman year before going to England, I joined the KAs like my father had before me. And obviously we had the best rush class. The week of homecoming, it rained the entire week, but we had to build a float for the homecoming parade. So the decision was made that we would build a float in the living room of the fraternity house because we had a large double French door that we thought we could get the float out of. So the day of the parade, I pulled my pickup truck up to the fraternity house. We all got under the float, lifted it, and it wouldn't go through the door. So while others agonized over what to do, jumped in the truck, ran home, got a chainsaw, and returned to the house. Within minutes, the now float pieces fit through the door and were thrown up into the back of my truck. Now, as the driver of the truck in the parade, I heard kids along the parade route saying, "Mommy, what is that float?" I hollered out, "It's a landfill." Problem was solved. Numerous incidents of problem solving arose during the balance of my tenure. I was the KA officer who pretty much had a standing meeting every Monday morning with the Dean of Students, Gary Phelps, to explain exactly what stupid things we had done over the weekend and try to negotiate the lightest sentence possible. As the news director of KWJC, which I believe doesn't exist anymore, it was the radio station on the campus at the time, and I was a member of the newspaper staff, so I had access to a stash of historical documents and photographs that covered about the previous 50 or 60 years of the campus life. And it was there that I discovered a photograph of the then student Gary Phelps leading an anti-Vietnam War protest circa about 1968. In my hands was the get out of jail free card that I needed so badly. What I learned that day was to not show up to a gunfight with a knife. The KAs are still on probation today. But the classroom challenges, the extracurricular activities, and the challenges presented by educators who were crazy enough to think this kid might stay out of prison were producing a slow, quiet, but profound change. The kid who didn't intellectually know he hated average was discovering that learning in all of its forms was the solution to mediocre. But since I represented about 80% of my fellow classmates, what elevated me to accomplish the things that would be worthy of this recognition today? The only answer that I can conclude is professors like Dr. Bowman, who went to her grave believing that I had a bright career at the counter at 7-Eleven, but regardless, never let me off the hook, and constantly demanded more and better. She refused to not let me learn. Or Dr. Willett, who's the acting chairman of the Convocation department and ran our senior seminar class. The entire semester, we studied one book, Rhetoric by Aristotle. Dr. Willett didn't teach the class. He moderated a semester-long journey through the mind of one of the world's greatest thinkers. When Dr. Willett taught the class, the rest of the world disappeared for an hour. Do you or I have that impact on young people when we talk to them today? To Dr. Harriman, I had the joy of meeting a brilliant mind and total gentleman who was comfortable and okay with a kid who was completely off the wall and always said exactly what he thought. These traits that were viewed as offensive to many in academia were encouraged by this man. He and Dr. Willett made learning fun to the point that it instilled in me idea that you can never learn enough, and that a day without stretching your mind is somehow a wasted day. There's many others whose impact turned me from a bright but undisciplined kid into a learning sponge. Dr. Kirkpatrick, who made the Old Testament come alive as a historical novel. Kermit Watkins, I'm surprised I didn't get some Snickers. Kermit Watkins, who showed that teaching macroeconomics could be fun, in spite of the fact he may have been the first professor hired by the college in 1849. Even the librarian, who was really old, terribly cranky, and didn't think that we all knew she chewed tobacco. 34 years after graduating, they're all still there every night. They're the shadows in the corner of the room when I read something, anything, as long as the last thing I do at the end of the day is learn. After graduation, I worked at Farmland Industries and Public Relations, and while the company eventually succumbed to bankruptcy, I was never able to draw a direct correlation to my employment there. After 2 years of a fun but uninspiring job, I went to work for my current employer, Vanguard Packaging, which at the time was owned by my family. The reality of working for your family is that you feel a responsibility to perform at a higher level than you can imagine. It's both very liberating and very pressure-filled at the same time. As the years passed and the reality set in that business is not a democracy, I realized that buying the company outright from the family was the only way to answer the responsibility of wanting to do things my way. So in 2005, I bought 100% of the company from the family and set out to make changes to the scope and the direction of the company. Without boring everybody here with details, I think in hindsight, the most important thing that came out of this decision to buy the company was the decision to quit thinking like a small local company and start thinking like a large nationwide company. You cannot expect anybody to see you in terms greater than you see yourself. So our move into taking a leadership role in national industries, volunteering in industry associations, and eventually becoming, as was mentioned earlier, well, actually, this is a little bit different, eventually becoming the only person to ever sit on all 3 national industry association boards, I might add at the same time, created a sense in our industry that as a company, we were innovators and thought leaders. What I did not anticipate was that it had the same impact on us as a company. If you act like you want to be, you will become, good or bad. One other thing that developed in the 1990s and 2000s for me was the incredible opportunity to coach in competitive youth baseball. No job I have ever done or position I've held has even come close to impacting others as a simple act of coaching boys and young men. Looking back on over 1,300 games coached, probably 3,000 plus practices, coaching in 12 World Series, I realize now how many boys' only chance at being normal were the days we played a game or had a practice. These boys came from broken homes, had attention deficit issues, or were enduring some hardship we were completely unaware of, or even things I couldn't even imagine. It was there that I learned that organizations, in this case a sports team, but organizations in general, always, not sometimes, take on the personality of the coach or the person in charge. This is a lesson I carried into everything I've ever done where I was in a leadership role. Now, while it's not prevented me from demonstrating incredible fits of stupidity, it has served as a great reminder that people around you watch you every day. I said early on that the wrong Mathis got this, and I mean it sincerely. I ranked so far down, frankly, it's an embarrassment. Not only is my dad an infinitely better candidate, but my mom, who quietly outperforms all of us every day and makes it look easy, should be there as well. My sister, who graduated from KU, got a master's in nursing and eventually quit spitting on me when I got bigger than her, has many better traits than me. I could include my 3 sons and their spouses, but we don't count them until we get grandchildren. But the one who deserves much of the credit for what I've become, and who deserves this recognition more than me, is my wife, Karen. She also attended Williamsville and graduated in 1980. Today, she's a member of the Board of Trustees of Williamsville, so students do not screw up around her. As Liberty High School's last single valedictorian, she worked hard and got excellent grades at Williamsville as well, thus proving that opposites do attract. But everybody needs somebody whose simple presence makes you a better person. I was lucky enough to marry that person. Literally everything I've accomplished in multiple endeavors in some way or another sprang from the desire to try to be as good as her. My quest to learn every day is a quest to not fall too far behind somebody who makes learning look easy. So thank you again for this recognition. My apologies to the other honorees today, as well as past honorees, whose accomplishments hopefully I have not tarnished by my inclusion into this club, and the entire Mathis family thanks you for this honor.
It is with humility and gratitude that I have the privilege of addressing you today. So please allow me to share a few lessons I've learned along the way. While in college here, one of my jobs was singing for a large funeral home in Kansas City. One of the songs often chosen by the family was How Great Thou Art. So I showed up at the appointed time for this particular funeral. I was greeted by a different organist, an elderly lady with her beret on sideways. And we exchanged pleasantries, and she asked if we needed to practice. I said, not for me, and she said, not for her either. So we began to sing. Behind the curtain, O Lord my God, mine awesome wonder, consider all the worlds thy hands have made. I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, at which she imitated thunder. Well, I got tickled. And her imitation of the rolling thunder, and I barely got through the song, tears streaming down my face, my throat had closed up, and after the funeral director came marching toward me, looked quite serious and relayed, the family wanted to express how nice it was that you were moved. One's perception is often one's reality, and one's attitude is often what allows us to succeed. The great ragtime pianist Judy Blake said it. Be grateful for the luck and pay that thunder no mind. A number of years ago, we had a music critic in Orlando, and I'm quite sure didn't like music very much. He seemed to level some mean-spirited attacks at the festival that I conduct. A few days after one of those reviews, I was having lunch with Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers is an alum of the institution, actually a music major of Rollins College. And I asked him how he dealt with sometimes mean-spirited attacks. He said, pity the person that can't find joy in work like you do. Trust and believe in yourself. You know when things are right. Mozart wrote, don't pay attention to anybody's praise or blame, just simply follow your own feelings. And have a purpose. J.S. Bach did not disguise his enemy. He signed many of his works with the initials SDG, Solo Deo Gloria, solely for the glory of God. Be true to yourself. Know that the secret to joy in your work is believing in yourself and pursuing excellence. One of my favorite memories of having conducted over 650 concerts for Disney also involves Fred Rogers. Gail, my wife, brought Fred and Joanne, his wife, one night out to Epcot Candlelight Processional because Fred wanted to see his friend LeVar Burton, who was narrator that night. Fred decided to visit me in the pre-concert rehearsal. Well, when Mr. Rogers walked into a tent with 300 high school students, they went ballistic. Without saying a word, he walked up to the microphone and began to softly sing, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And within a few seconds, they'd all joined in. When they finished, he said, sing well, my dears, and left with no ceremony. Later that evening, I took a picture with Fred and LeVar. Fred passed away the next year. And when I presented that picture to LeVar a few years later, tears welled up into his eyes. He said, you know, he was really my hero. Isn't it amazing the power of one soft, kind voice? Fred lived that verse, Romans 13:10, love does no harm to a neighbor. And every day of his adult life, he carried in his wallet a picture of a plaque on the Rollins campus that he saw as a student. Life is for service. The model Fred set for us is born in the idea that love is indeed the answer, and being a good neighbor is important work. Mother Teresa said it best. We cannot all do great things, but we can all do small things with great love. Every year, I have lunch with our graduating seniors and have them select a marble, a handmade one from the mid-1800s. And then I tell them this story. A man is riding his horse on a deserted road at night when a stranger appears out of nowhere and asks him to dismount and pick up some stones. The stranger said, in the morning you're going to be happy and sad. When daybreak came, he looked at the stones. They weren't rocks, they were gems, rubies, and diamonds. And he remembered what the stranger had said. And he was indeed happy he'd stopped. Sad he didn't pick up more. Well, the stones represent education and life's experiences, and it reminds us to pick up all we can as we go through life. Remember, you're not only an individual, but part of a community, and you have responsibility to others. It's crucial to be a great version of yourself and not a mediocre one for someone else. As a child, I grew up just east of here. My grandfather's store was directly across from some railroad tracks. And I convinced my family to take this 8-year-old and put him on a train in Kansas City and ride to a nearby station. It was a thrilling ride, and the train had a diamond car. When I got off the station carrying 5 boxes of Cracker Jacks, my mom inquired about all of those boxes. I told her there was a quarter in the car, and I wanted to see it. So each time I went to the car, I bought another box. You see, the quarter was an African American, and I'd never seen a black man up close. I asked him if I could see his hands. He put his hands out, and I touched them. And I looked up and said, "You're just like me." And what he said is something I will never forget. "Son, I'm like you in every way." And maybe one of these days everyone will see that. Life's most important lessons are rarely learned in the classroom. And I have found the best teachers usually experience. The concert series of William Jewell changed my life. Hearing these great artists the series brought to campus has provided me with a lifetime of inspiration. And while there are many memorable performances, 2 in particular have special significance. I had the honor of turning pages for a recital of Marilyn Horne. I had never heard a voice so beautiful. And during the recital, I heard her pianist Mark Katz say, "Turn the page." And I did. He said, "Again." I was so mesmerized that I had forgotten where I was. About 10 years ago, I was conducting a concert where Marilyn Horne was a guest artist. Before rehearsal, I shared with her that story. She started chuckling and said, "Marty and I had a lot of laughs at your expense." During the curtain call that night, she smiled, held my face, leaned up, and whispered in my ear, "John, I'm proud of you. You didn't get lost tonight." Well, I remember complaining about having to go to a classical guitar recital. At that time in my life, I was really much more interested in rock and jazz, and while I liked classical music, I wasn't quite yet a disciple. That evening, guitarist Christopher Parkin sat here on the stage and played Bach Prelude, and I was spellbound. It was that night that I fell in love with music of J.S. Bach. At dinner with Mr. Parkin a few years ago, I shared with him how he influenced my life, and he reminded me that we don't often know when, where, and how our influence begins or ends. 4 professors, in particular at Jewell, recognized my talent long before I did. Dr. Don Brown, there today, provided me with leadership opportunities at chapel choir, instilled a love for music history, and encouraged me to study hymnology, which started a lifelong love of hymns and has provided me with insight into the interpretation of Bach chorales, ones I conduct regularly in Passions. Dr. Phil Posey pulled me aside and said, "I think you're going to be a conductor. You need to know more about instruments than just being a brass player." So he invested in me in so many ways. But teaching a rank beginner bassoon lessons for 2 years simply because he knew it would pay off dividends later. As a busy professor, I know what a sacrifice that was. Dr. Wesley Forbes was bigger than life. I still have the note he wrote in the back of my final conducting project where he said, "John, you're going to be a fine conductor. Work hard to know that I'm expecting to hear great things from you." And finally, Mr. Lakin, our theory professor, called me into his office and asked me why I got a B on my last theory exam. I explained that I had a gig that weekend, my band was playing, and I didn't really have time for my homework. He looked up and said, "Mr. Sinclair, you are a better student than that. If you turn in less than your best work, I'm simply not going to take it." Well, as you might suspect, my theoretical background I received here served me pretty well throughout the years. Trust in your mentors and your professors and see what they see in you. Try to prove them right. As a professor, I can give you absolute assurance that our greatest professional joy comes in your success. Please know how immensely humbled I am by this award and how grateful I am for the education I received here. As Frost said in his poem, "The Road Not Taken," it really has made all the difference. So thank you, Mr. President, trustees, faculty, staff, and students. Being a graduate of William Jewell is and always will be a source of great pride. Once again, please accept my sincere admiration and heartfelt gratitude. Thank you.
Good morning. I have to tell you a little story. When we were all back in the enrobing room, I was standing there with my notes, but we had to get photographed. And so I thought, well, I'll just fold up my notes. I'll set them on this little table over here, and we'll get the photographs taken, and then I'll go back and retrieve my notes. And as we're taking the photographs, all of a sudden I noticed that this school is so efficient that one of the servers had taken my notes off the table, which was actually a table reserved for old coffee cups, etc. He folded them up, was crumpling them, and was about to put them in the trash when I raced, faster than I've ever raced, with high heels on to retrieve those. So fortunately, I don't have to stand up here and hum for the next 5 minutes. When I arrived at William Jewell in the fall of 1979, they told me I had to leave. Ms. Staten, they said, "I'm sorry, there's no room for you. We told you that was a possibility. We wrote to you. We didn't admit you, and so you're just going to have to leave." Well, clearly I didn't leave, or I wouldn't be standing here today. So my theme for the next 5 minutes is going to be how William Jewell taught me perseverance, patience, and planning, although not in the way you might think. Let me give you a little background. In 1976, the law was changed to allow women to attend our nation's military academies. And in 1978, in my junior year, I received nominations from then Senator Danforth and then Congressman Dick Gephardt to be one of the graduating high school seniors from the state of Missouri to attend the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. I met the Academy's academic requirements, I guess, and somehow I managed to meet their physical requirements. Chin-ups and push-ups are really not my thing, but I made it through. There was only one problem. I was very nearsighted. And back then they didn't have LASIK surgery. And so late in the spring of my senior year, I received a letter from the Naval Academy, and it said, "We regret to inform you that even though your eyesight is within waiverable limits, we only have a few waivers we can offer, and you're not getting one." They said it nicer than that, but something along those lines. Thank you for applying. Okay, so late spring of my senior year, and what you're thinking is, oh, William Jewell was her backup school. William Jewell was her plan B. No, you would be giving me too much credit if you thought that. I had not applied to any other schools. I had no backup. I had no plan B. So, I got into the car with my mom, and I toured the state of Missouri and all of its liberal arts colleges because I knew I wanted to attend a small liberal arts college. A friend of a friend had gone to William Jewell College. So I didn't have family to guide me. I didn't have past generations of William Jewell alums. But I knew somebody who knew somebody. And I thought, I'll check out William Jewell. And to be honest, 34 years later, I can't tell you who I met. I can't give you the specifics of what I saw or what I did when I was here. But I can tell you how I felt. I fell in love with this college. And it felt like home, really from the very first minute. So, I applied. Now we get to the second problem. I got a letter saying I think the word was conditionally admitted, something like that. I don't know if you still send out letters like that, but it was something along those lines. And the condition, everyone has to live on campus. We have no room for you now, and if something opens up, we'll tell you. Send you another letter. Okay, the next problem, that letter never arrived. I didn't get a letter telling me I could come here. But I knew this college was for me. So once again, my poor mother, she went through a lot. She got in the car with me again. We packed up all my stuff. I'm not sure I told her I wasn't. But she must have known because she had enough stuff with her to stay here for a while. We drove across the state because I was from St. Louis. I wasn't local. We lived in a hotel in downtown Liberty. Now, somehow this conditional admission allowed me to enroll in classes. Either it allowed me to enroll or I just showed up. I'm not sure which, again. But I spent my first days, sitting through classes here at William Jewell, and then I spent every afternoon sitting in the office of the Dean of Students, Gary Phelps, waiting to find out if they had a space for me. Yes, it did feel a little vulture-like, waiting for someone to drop out and grab their room. Finally, after about a week or so, a room opened up in Semple Wing, I believe it was, and I moved in, and William Jewell became my home, away from home, my academic home, for the next 4 years. Now, as Lincoln once wrote in a letter to an aspiring young lawyer, always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any one thing. When I knew that William Jewell was where I wanted to be, where I was meant to be, I knew that I had to make that happen. No turning back, no quitting, no letting someone else tell me I couldn't do it. Perseverance. Okay? First lesson, perseverance. But ultimately, I had to rely on others. I could not set up camp in a William Jewell dorm. I had to rely on those at William Jewell to decide to let me in. And they did. They worked very hard at it. I don't know if it was out of sympathy and empathy. I like to think that because they're just very good people here. But it could be they were just tired of me sitting around in the student's office every afternoon. But patience. I had to have patience. Practicing patience has not come easily to me. As Aristotle tells us, Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. I did not want to spend my first weeks of college in a rundown hotel in Liberty, Missouri with my mother. I did not want to spend the first weeks sitting every afternoon in the office of the Dean of Students. But I did want to attend William Jewell, so I had to wait. Perseverance, patience. So now we come to planning. Okay, I had planned, all right, hadn't I? I had planned to attend the Naval Academy. Clearly, I did not plan to attend William Jewell College. But I could not have had a better experience at any college in the nation. I could not have had more brilliant professors than those like Dr. Dean Dunham, Dr. Anne Marie Shannon, or Dr. Kenneth Chadlos. I also have to tell one little aside, because I know Dr. Dunham is sitting here right now. He told me that he found out that I was an English major when I walked across the stage in the Tatler competition in my sophomore year, and in the background they tell a little about you and they announce your majors. And I put English, and that was how he found out I was an English major. But I'm here to tell you that you may have a plan as a student, and you may exercise perseverance and patience in the goal of achieving that plan. But it may not be God's plan for you. Don't worry. Don't fret. God's plan is always infinitely better, although you may have to exercise patience to see that. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. You have made it here to William Jewell. In my view, one of the best colleges in the world. Persevere, be patient. I know you have both hope and a bright future. Thank you for this honor.
What a great morning. I love great stories from our achievers each year, and I always walk away informed and inspired and thoughtful about what has brought them to this point and what role we collectively have played in that. Today it's persevere, learn, and serve. Persevere, learn, and serve is what I walk away with. Thank you all for being with us today as we honor these wonderful folks and we express to them our joy and our pride in them. Now, in just a moment, we're going to sing the Alma Mater, and the Alma Mater will be followed by the benediction, which will be delivered by Mr. Tyler Willis, who is the recipient this year of the Colonel Alexander Donaldson Award. If you would, after the benediction, please remain standing in your place for the recessional. Now, under the direction of Mr. Phil Schaefer, we'll join in the Alma Mater if we'll all stand together.
benediction will be from Proverbs 3:14. Let us pray. The Lord said, "My son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Let not steadfast love or faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find good favor and good success in the sight of God and man." May we all find good favor and good success in the sight of God and man, as these three have. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.